You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we welcome two photographers who will be speaking at next week's B&H-hosted OPTIC conference, Pete McBride and Lisa Langell. But before you rush out to buy your plane tickets to New York, let's be clear. This year's Outdoor Photo, Video, Travel, Imaging Conference is digital only. You don't have to fly to New York. Now think about that. This show used to be that if you lived in New York City, you hop a cab, Uber, Subway, whatever, and boom, you're right there. Some people have ponied up for airline tickets and hotels to be there. Even though it's a free event, it costs a lot. This year, we're bringing the event to you. You could sit around just like you're sitting around right now in your home and check out all of the seminars, all of the speakers. Again, it's going to all be there live. And we're going to still be providing the same caliber of impressive photographers to talk about their craft, technique, and gear. And it will still be absolutely free. So we really encourage all of our listeners to follow the link in our show notes or go to the B&H website or just Google B&H OPTIC 2020 to register for OPTIC. That's OPTIC, which will be held next week, June 7th and 8th. Again, we really hope that our listeners around the world take advantage of this free online conference. And when you do register, be sure to let them know you're fans of the B&H Photography Podcast. Wink, wink. We'd really like you to do that for us. And while we're at it, check out the show notes for the link to the B&H Photography Podcast Leica Photo Challenge and read how you could submit one photograph and be eligible to win an incredible $5,000 Leica Q2 full-frame digital camera. This is a wonderful opportunity to show off your photography and possibly win this incredible piece of photo gear. Now on with the show. Our first guest is Lisa Langell, who specializes in wildlife and bird photography. Lisa's work has appeared in numerous prestigious publications, galleries, and more. Most recently, Lisa nailed the front cover and feature story on her work in the June 2020 issue of Outdoor Photographer magazine. She currently sits on the board of directors for the North American Nature Photography Association, and she is a pro ambassador for Tamron lenses and Photo Pro tripods. Welcome to our show, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
I tell you, I have to start off. Let's talk about this cover story for Outdoor Photographer. Now, it's the June 20 issue of Outdoor Photographer. Now, what really made me sit up and take notice this morning as I was reading the advanced PDF that you sent is your approach to things. You talk about the end use of the photograph. On this show, we tend to talk about tools and technique a lot. You're talking about where is this print going to go? What's the end use? Now, I shot commercially for many years. I've shot for print ads, for billboards, magazine spreads, covers, interiors. Now you have things like Instagram. There are different purposes for photographs, and people go out to take really pretty pictures, bold photographs, but often not thinking about where is it going. And this whole article is about how to take photographs geared for home display, which has a whole set of parameters that I think about all the time, but I never put it in that perspective. Elaborate on that. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, and this wasn't an idea that I had, overnight. It's sort of an evolving idea, but I've come to realize, to distill it down to its basic parts, that when we shoot as photographers, wildlife and nature photographers especially, we tend to shoot, to get those wow moments and, filling the frame. And I always say, the water droplets on the eyelashes kind of sharp and, all of this really exciting, impactful photography. And what I've come to realize over the course of, many years is that when we go to sell it, it doesn't often work, and sell it, I mean, go hang it in a gallery somewhere or at an art, booth or wherever you sell your work online. And people appreciate it like crazy, but they don't want to take it home. They don't see a place for it in their house. And I'm working from the end backwards. And as a little bit of a kind of some experience with that I have is with regard to my experience as a floral designer for 15 years where I did interior decorating.
Okay.
And then I also have worked as a psychologist for 20 years before I did photography full-time. And these are things that I feel like nature photographers today aren't thinking about. And most of our contests and the kind of critiques and things that we get, and kind of the goals of how we learn photography and learn wildlife photography, it's all been oriented towards magazine and calendar style work, and not really oriented towards training people in how to shoot for interiors and how to shoot artwork that fits well in interiors. And there's a lot of personal preference in there and style choice, but it's a different animal when you're shooting to create work for a wall versus creating work for a full page spread. So anyway, that's kind of an idea that's come over time, but I find it is very valid. It's very valid, and people are really starting to kind of get that idea the more I talk about it and the more I do what I do.
So, give us a couple of examples of things that you have in mind when you are photographing, taking a photograph that you know is going to be displayed in a home. Now, you may, even if you don't know the particular home, you don't know what their color scheme is or what the style of home is, but there are certain parameters that you use that go into photographs that are specifically for being displayed at somebody's home for enjoyment. What are they?
Yes, good question. So one of the things that I think about is the styles of homes in general. Is it a contemporary home? Is it a home that's done more in a rustic style? I sort of have these styles that I prefer. I have to work within your own style, but the tastes that I prefer. And then I start and I work backwards from there. It might be a color scheme. It might be, one of the things that I'm known for is my vintage photography, vintage wildlife photography, which those things don't normally go together, but I've put them together and it sells. And so I'll think about the end result. Where is it going to live, and work backwards? So then when I'm out in the field, I am looking for things that have, we can't ignore the things that we've learned over the years: strong composition, good line, contrast, use of light, but I'm doing it in a different way. Normally we would use light that is, that morning or evening light, the golden hour, beautiful side light, all of those things for wildlife and nature that we've learned over the years. And for me, I find that I make the best photographs in the worst lighting conditions possible when it comes to art, because I can do completely different things with it, shoot high key, shoot low key, lots of negative space. I like to shoot things often in monochromatic tones, so I can change the color palette to custom match for a home. There's just a whole different realm of shooting and post-processing options that become available that we don't ever even think about in traditional nature and wildlife photography.
You also mentioned things. One thing that struck me is serenity.
Yeah.
You don't want to have animals that are, eating other animals or anything like that. There's one other thing I wanted to come back to. You just mentioned about shooting a time of day. Again, we all go for the golden hour because it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and everybody swoons. And you mentioned the fact that you actually do some of your best stuff under the worst lighting conditions. And it triggered something in my head, is that we get the New York Times delivered here on the weekends. And in the magazine section, invariably, there's an artist, a painter. His name is Mitchell Johnson, and he always takes out an ad, and he shoots like Provincetown, Cape Cod, seashore kind of stuff, very bold graphics, simple design. And I realized all of his stuff is always done midday. I always look at the shadows and everything. It's harsh light.
Yeah.
And he does the same thing. And this guy is selling for home use. And he's using simple design, 2 or 3 colors, all the things that you are talking about in this article. I'm saying Mitchell Johnson, this artist, has been doing this for years, and he can afford to put ads in the New York Times magazine section every week.
That's impressive.
There you go.
And it's so true. The lighting, the things that we do for home interiors are very different from the things from magazines. And so I find using backlight, harsh light, I use high key styles a lot, lighting that, we would normally walk far away from in traditional nature and wildlife photography. I can find that I find beautiful things in that light, but you need to think about it in a different way, how to process it in a different way. It's really, I don't want to say untraining your brain from what we've learned all these years, but it's a very, very different direction. It's like going from being, a chef in a restaurant to a pastry chef. It's a very different genre of work. And, there are some things that overlap, but there's an entirely new avenue. And it's been really fun to explore. And people really gravitate towards what I'm doing and what I'm teaching. And I teach a lot of workshops on this kind of thing and incorporate that even into my traditional nature photography workshops as another element. And people are thirsty for something new. They really have enjoyed what I've had to offer. And ultimately the work is selling. And that's also, validation for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And Lisa, do you have consultations with potential clients? Do you meet them? Do you go to their homes? I mean, is that part of the process, or is that just occasional?
If they're in my area, I can go to their home. But, like, for example, right now I'm working with someone who wants a series of images over their bedroom. And so I have them send me pictures of their room face on. I also have them send me some measurements, and I can mock all that up and show them, what kinds of things we can do. I also do a lot of work where I pre-present it, if you will, in some living room that, I license stock images online and display these in different rooms to give people an idea of scale and context and color palette. And then I can customize it for someone. So, I show something over, let's say, a living room, over the sofa, let's say. And if somebody wants a different size, or I will match it to what size they need, then I do that. So I'm not hanging on to a lot of artwork just laying around if it's the wrong size. I present the concept, and then I can custom make the final piece to fit in their room. So that works in some cases. And in some cases, like I've worked with a senior residential facility in Oklahoma. They wanted things that were very local looking. It was a memory care facility, so the more people see familiar things, the better. So they wanted a subtle Native American style feel with some wildlife and things from Oklahoma. So I did my vintage photography with animals that are found in Oklahoma. And I kind of incorporated some Native American pieces in there, actually handmade some pieces as well, built these backdrops. It was a very beautiful triptych of things for their foyer as you walk in. So them things are very, very specific. This is the color palette we have, the size, and so forth. Other things I consult with the audience, whoever wants to buy it, and figure out how it's going to work best and custom make it from there.
I have a fast question. Do you charge more for these private consultations as opposed to a stock image you already have?
I haven't yet. I mean, if there was significant work involved, then I would build that into the price or the estimate. But I haven't too much yet. I find that, like anything else, I mean, you build some of that time into the cost of the ultimate product, but the relationships, that building process also helps me too, because the more someone has a relationship with you, the more they appreciate the work, the more they're likely to tell the story about the work and then refer other people. So it's part marketing and business to do that. So
Good points.
Yeah.
John, did you want to ask something? I'm sorry. I think
I just was going to ask if you do your own printing, or do you send it out?
Both. I do my own printing. I have a Canon Pixma Pro 10 printer that I love. So if I'm doing smaller work, I can do it right from home. I just moved, so up until now, I haven't had the space for a larger printer. But I do also send my work out. And I particularly love a print lab called Pro Lab Express. They're in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they do a lot of really unique things that I haven't seen anyone do anywhere else. And they've really worked with me. They're the kind of people you can pick up on the phone and talk to. And we've developed some concepts together, and they've done a beautiful job for me. So,
what kind of surfaces do you prefer using for your work? Are you doing canvas, or are you using rag paper? What are the media that you're using?
So if I'm printing from home, and occasionally if I'm ordering out as well, sounds like takeout.
It is.
Right. I'll have a side of velvet rag with, but I do
like the soul. This is okay.
Right? Exactly. So I have, I really, really love printing on a very heavy, like a cotton rag paper, matte paper, typically like a 300 GSM, which is a very thick paper, because I love, like for my vintage work, I love hand decaling the edges and really making this textural, not just visual feel. But if I'm printing, and sending it out, it depends on what the client needs. If they want a canvas, I can do it on canvas, but I think about where it's going to live, because if it's in a living room, it's probably okay. If it's in a kitchen area where it might absorb grease or odors, probably not okay. So I think about where it's going to live. Other things, if they wanted it behind glass, that's great. But if you're in an open area with a lot of reflections, like window light, then we need to think about something that doesn't reflect, either a different medium or choosing non-glare glass to do something. So it really depends on the client and on where it's going to go. I tend to prefer frameless pieces. But then, when it comes to my vintage stuff, that's a little different because I'm choosing very specific frames. I'm hand building backdrops that go with, reclaimed wood and things like that. So again, it's almost like a mixed medium where the frame becomes part of the art, not just a way to present the art, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you take extra precautions for UV protection in situations where the print or is going to be in a bright or heavy UV environment?
Yeah, that's something to consider. And I tend to steer folks away from something that would be a problem. That said, when I print, I'm using, 100-year archival printing and papers and things like that. So that helps.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be sitting in super bright light, I might talk about printing in some other, on some other substrate, printing on metal, printing on, there's even extruded PVC that I've printed in a few cases, which someone would go, why? But, in certain circumstances, like I've done some things for hotels where people are touching stuff all the time, they have the opportunity to break it or steal it. And so certain materials can actually work really well and be surprisingly affordable. So it just depends on what I'm doing and what the final look needs to be.
Okay.
I want to change the direction a little bit here to ask. I really like your bear photos, believe it or not, the ones on the website. And I would say a lot of nature photographers, wildlife photographers, shoot bears, but there's something a little special about yours. But what I wanted to ask more about is the prep and the production for getting these shots. Do you rely on guides? Do you go to the same places? What's the planning involved?
Yeah, great question, by the way. So, I go to where the bears are, but my go to where the wild things are. But my preference, my heart and soul is really in Alaska. I mean, I love Yellowstone and the Tetons and, those areas too for bears. But Alaska is just, it's been a piece of my heart since I first went there in 2006. And this would have been my 49th trip to Alaska this summer, have we not had COVID. Yeah, I kind of like it up there. And so I've gotten to know some areas really well. I've traveled all over Alaska, from the most far-flung places to, villages and in really, really remote areas of Alaska. And I've shot bears in several of those locations, but, there's a lot of well-known places, but one of my very favorites is in Chinitna Bay. It's an area of Alaska that just, I feel, has some of the most diverse scenery. We can get clam digging. We can get them fishing in the river. We can get them walking through the valleys, and you get these beautiful different dimensions of bears. It's not just all one note. So often you see bear pictures and, it's always in the river and they're always chasing the salmon. It's like, well, bears do other things too. And, so I try to really get different perspectives on these bears. I do use guides, and I work with a lodge over there that has guides there. And I specifically, if I'm bringing a group over, I will use that guide, and he knows me and he knows my group, and he takes great care of us. We're always very, very conscientious of bear safety, but we've been able to get just spectacular shots and still do it very safely. So that's one area that I really love. And then I love going over to Lake Iliamna. I use another guide over there, and he does some other really unique things where he'll fly me anywhere I want to go. We can pretty much go anywhere we need to go and get some spectacular images. So it just depends on the experience, but I like going where fewer tourists are, and those are my two favorite places. I've been to some of the places like Brooks Lodge, and it's too crowded. It's not a place that, it's a neat place, but it's not a place that I prefer for my own photography. Yeah.
I was going to ask what your go-to lenses are, for this wildlife work, and I'm sure there's many, but bears specifically.
Yeah, bears specifically. So you want to be agile, right? You want to, and you're flying to these places in planes that often allow you 40 pounds total of gear, including clothes, underwear, you name it. If you're going to a place, it's very limited in these little planes. And so my go-to is the Tamron 150 to 600 G2. I absolutely love that lens. And I used to shoot with a Canon 500 f4, and sometimes I would put a teleconverter on there. But I just have found recently that it's just so unwieldy for most of the things that I'm doing. And I also lead tours, so I've found that that's had a certain statement about it that intimidated people, and I don't want to do that. That's not my style. I have found so much success with the Tamron in the fact that it can zoom in and out, and I can really focus on composing the image, and I can pull back if I need more negative space. I can zoom in if I want to do something tight. It just is so versatile, and it's tack sharp. I mean, I've just had a wonderful experience. I shoot primarily with a Canon 5D Mark IV, and I just love that combination so much. So that's my go-to. Probably second best would be, depending on where I am, if I don't need a super long reach, the Tamron 100 to 400 is also excellent, and it's very affordable. So, those two are go-to lenses for me. And then I'll do some other stuff that might need more wider angle. Like I love the 35 to 150 Tamron, and, the 15 to 30 is also exquisite. So it just depends on, am I doing landscapes or pulling back or zooming in? But I would say the 150 to 600 G2 it's my definite go-to. If I only had to bring one lens, that would be it.
And how many pounds does that weigh?
That's about great question. About 4.5 pounds.
Okay. So that's fair. That's a lot. That's a large focal range for that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
It's amazing. And, and I've kind of really reoriented my gear towards, lightness and flexibility, as many people have. I haven't yet switched to mirrorless for a variety of reasons, but between that and my Photo Pro Eagle Series tripod, I've shaved so much weight off of anything that I'm carrying. My whole gear setup weighs about 10 pounds now, including tripod, gimbal head, lens and camera. I mean, it's pretty awesome. So that's been my go-to. That tripod is amazing.
Is that a carbon fiber tripod?
It is. It's a 1K carbon fiber, so it's the newest version of carbon fiber, and it holds 33 pounds. The gimbal head only weighs less than a pound on it. The whole thing holds 33 pounds, and the whole tripod weighs 4.5 pounds total. So it is, I've got a 4.5 pound lens, a 4.5 pound tripod, and a camera that weighs, a pound or two, and I'm good to go. And my lens used to weigh just under 10 pounds alone. So this has really shaved off a lot. And that the other thing that I love about that tripod specifically, it's the only one that I know that does this, but you can shoot in 360 degrees in any direction. And you also don't need to carry extra heads with you. So as a wildlife photographer, I was always carrying a gimbal head to do, birds in nature. And then I would carry a ball head if I wanted to switch to do landscapes or close-up work with short lenses. And then if I wanted to do video, I needed a video fluid head. And this tripod, actually, the one head does all three things beautifully. So that is another way that I'm shaving off pounds when we're trying to, go out into the wilderness. I wish we could shave off pounds, ourselves as easily as I could have done it with this gear. So anyway, it's been a great setup for me.
Is that a Photo Pro gimbal head also? That is it there? Is. Oh, okay. So I have to check that out. I've used gimbal heads in the back, and especially with longer lenses, they are wonderful. And if anybody out there listening who's likes shooting with longer lenses, if you haven't tried a gimbal head with that, do so. It's a very interesting tool to use. It does make your life a lot easier and a lot more fluid, and just easier to swing that lens around and get good work.
It is. It's amazing. Yeah, it's a wonderful tool. And the fact that I can use this particular tripod for all three different types of photography and never have to change the head is extraordinary, because it's less to carry. It's less time that I'm wasting, and there's a precious moment where you got to switch from one thing to another on the fly. The last thing I want to do is dig out other heads and unscrew things and take time to screw the new ones back on. And it's just, I can already have gotten the shot in that amount of time. So it's wonderful.
That's great. What are you going to be speaking about at OPTIC next week? Give us a little sneak preview.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about raptor photography, but I'm going to be doing it with a little bit of a twist. So, in traditional nature photography, I mean, I can't do it if it wasn't a little twist, right, with what I do. But traditional nature photography, right? I'm like, what else can I add about, birds in flight or raptors? Like that topic's been covered. So I'm going to be taking a different spin on it. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about, I mean, I will do some traditional nature photography and talk about that, but I'm also going to be talking about translating some of these raptor shots into more of a fine art in more of a consumer-based, realm with what I do, of how can I transition this into a piece that people want to take home and put in their home, on their wall, or in their office, or what have you. Yeah, how do you make it palatable? So I'll talk about that. And I'm also going to be talking about a very dear friend of mine, Kaylin Pearson, runs a falconry school, and she's excellent at what she does. She's very careful about the care of her birds and so forth. And I'm going to be also, in case people want to learn about this, I'll be doing some studio photography with some of the birds. So these are captive birds, which is also a little bit different. But when I'm doing home interiors, people aren't asking, well, gee, are these birds captive? They want something really cool. So if you have a raptor lover and you want something in your home, these are some ways that we can do. And I'm going to do some high key and low key stuff with these birds, and just present another alternative to the traditional that we've been doing. I can't add much to the traditional. There's just like encyclopedias written on this kind of stuff, but I can add a lot with talking about it in a different realm and how to take care of this picture based on where it's going to live, and just present a different spin on it that people haven't seen yet. So I'm excited about it.
I think what's really interesting about this is that it's, even though your end point here is how to sell photographs for people's homes. Okay, that's what it's about. It's about marketing. But at the end of the day, it's about monetizing what you do. Okay.
Yeah.
But even, I think for listeners, what the value of this is, even if you do not have any plans of going out to be selling pictures to your neighbors to hang on their walls, these are good things to have in mind. Creative tools to have in your mind when you go out to take pictures, criteria, parameters, and just by following some of these rules, it tightens up your photography and it gives you, I think, stronger imagery. So again, even if you never have plans of selling a single print, these guidelines are very valuable.
They are. And that's exactly it. I mean, if we come back to, for any purpose, shooting something and thinking about where it's going to live or where it can potentially live, it puts different parameters on things. And I find it often inspires you more. I mean, if I said, all right, I want you to go out and shoot a series of pictures for a room that is, let's say pale sky blue and white with a little pop of yellow. And I want you to shoot a series of five 10 by 10s for the wall. That gives you completely different goals that you wouldn't have normally thought about doing. And you can come up with some really interesting results that way. I find creativity is best when we have some pretty tight parameters around things and you push the envelope.
I learned that early on, and I've said it many times in this show, is sometimes your limitations are your creative tools. Those are your assets. Once you know what you can't do, you could do everything else. And
exactly.
And it's really true. I mean, it really is true. And that's a great thing. Here's what I have to do. And that helps you look for the pictures. Otherwise, you're just sort of like gazing around like a loon. But if you have a goal, if you say, okay, this is what I have to find, it has to fit this. First of all, it makes it fun. And it makes you look a little harder and a little bit further. So as I'm saying, these are good rules and guidelines for anybody out there with a camera.
Yes, they are. They really are. And if people want to learn more, I do have an on-demand class called The New Nature Photography, and it's on my website. And I go through a lot of these techniques and a lot of things on there, for people that are interested in it. But it's such a fun way to think about shooting, and it pushes me, in new directions. And I find doing more of just the same old traditional stuff. I mean, not that that's bad, but I just don't get excited about it as much as I do this. And, you got to go with where your passion and your excitement is and your style. And I just have so much more fun. Give me a cloudy, foggy, backlit subject any day, like the worst light you can think of as a photographer, and I will make something extraordinary out of it because that's what I love to do. And, of course, I live in Arizona. We get about 20 cloudy days a year. So,
you're a big shot. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Give me a cloudy day any day. You only get 20 out of 365. Yeah.
Sorry.
I appreciate the honesty. Thank you. Come to New Jersey. We'll make you happy.
Right? Exactly. I love it.
Now, Lisa, you said, you just mentioned the fact that, again, you're doing a lot of these seminars and webinars and things. talk about that, because you have some great stuff out there and your website is pretty much all set to go. People who are juiced by this little conversation, where can they go to continue this dialogue with you, actually?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So the website is www.Langell, which is LAN like Nancy, G like girl, ELL, photography.com. The webinars that I do, a little bit of history, I've been doing webinars since 2006. I've probably done over 2,000 webinars in my lifetime. So this experience is like old hat for me, whereas a lot of people are just doing it now because of COVID, and I've been there, done that for a long time. So I have a lot of experience with it, and I have found what really works well for people when they take my webinars is and I try to produce a really engaging, interactive experience. So most people will sit and talk for an hour to people that are out in the universe, and I take a very different approach. Surprise! But my background
That's why you're on the show,
right? Well, my background as a psychologist, I worked with kids with learning disabilities and trying to figure out what helps them learn, and diagnosing some of the things that were going on with them. So my whole gist for 20 years has been to focus on learning and how we learn and best practices for instruction and so forth. So I incorporate that into my webinars. So you get a very different experience. It's very interactive. It's two-way. I have activities that we're doing together as the group online. It isn't just to sit and get, right? You're doing something, you're participating in this experience. And I have found that once people try it, they're really, really enjoying it. And that gives me more motivation to do more. So you're going to see some on-demand webinars that you can do anytime, because I realize schedules are such that you need something on demand. So you're going to listen to some pre-recorded webinars of some of the topics that people have really enjoyed. But then I produce new webinars, and you can register for those anytime. And I love interacting with people. I love making learning easy and fun. And I put no ego into this. I think ego gets in the way of so many photographers being good instructors. You need to think about the person first, not you first. It's all about them. They're hiring you to teach them something.
All right. Okay. And again, you're going to be speaking next week at the B&H hosted OPTIC conference here in the internet universe. I can't say New York City. It's going to be all over the planet.
Yes.
And it's going to be great. And again, it's going to be next week. That'll be June 7th and 8th. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say there. I know it's going to be a lot more than we spoke about in this 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure having you on the show. Your work is wonderful. Your insights into it are truly insightful, and we hope to have you on the show again sometime. Thank you so much, Lisa.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, and we come back with Pete McBride. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back. Pete McBride is a bona fide card-carrying adventure photographer. He also photographs wildlife, conservation stories, and if you take a look at his landscapes and riverscapes, you might ask yourself, are these not art photographs too? So let's be done with the labels. Pete is a self-taught photographer, a filmmaker, writer, and a public speaker. He's also a Sony Artisan of Light, and he's traveled on assignment to over 75 countries for National Geographic Society, Smithsonian, Google, and the Nature Conservancy. He's also taken the stage for TEDx presentations, the World Economic Forum, USAID, National Geo Live, and other venues. Pete will also be speaking at OPTIC next week. So first question, what will your topic be at the OPTIC conference this year? And before you even answer, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So what are you going to be talking about?
I was going to take people on a little escape from their homes on a 750-mile, quote, walk in the park, a project I did for National Geographic where I walked the entire length of Grand Canyon National Park from east to west, not necessarily following the river because it gets too cliffy, so it was between the river and the rim took me over a year, and I'll show some video snippets and some of my photographs. I'll show some other work as well, but that'll be the bulk of it. And,
did you go around the entire area, or just through it, or what route did you take?
I went through it, and I had to find my route. I went with a friend and writer, Kevin Fedarko, and to put it in perspective, there's no trail. So we had to find our way, and more people have stood on the surface of the moon than have walked without stopping through the Grand Canyon. So it was a bit of a physical challenge, but it was remarkable to kind of showcase how lucky we are to have a place like that right in the lower 48.
How many bars did you get there?
Bars of service?
I would imagine for the most part, you probably in the dark a lot when it came to, being in touch with the outside world. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, it was extreme social distancing. No Netflix, no electricity. No, the satellite system I used for kind of emergencies and safety and just relying, logistical information barely worked most of the time.
Yeah. Did you meet up with any parties along the way to get food and have communications or any?
We did. We had kind of a logistical dance. We coordinated food drops with friends that oftentimes they'd leave them and leave us coordinates and very descriptive. It's if the GPS doesn't work, it's by the big rock next to the other big rock next to the bush.
Oh, that rock.
That rock, because there's not many rocks in the Grand Canyon. But we actually had some friends come in and join us and hike with us initially. It really beat the crap out of me, so to speak. It killed me, and so kind of needed some folks to come in and babysit to a degree because it's such an extreme environment to figure out how to find water, how to move through it, and then the other big challenge was not bringing all my equipment. As a photographer, you want to carry all your lenses and your backup systems, and you just couldn't do it. So I did the whole.
How did you strip down for that? I mean, as far as gear, I imagine you had at least 2 cameras. Am I correct?
No.
Wow.
One camera, one lens. I had a Sony A7R2. If I did it again today, I would have used the A7R4. But I had the A7R2, 5 batteries, 1 solar panel, 1 16 to 35 millimeter f4 lens.
That's it.
That's it.
I admire that because you know what? You actually eliminated a lot of issues just by doing that. You basically set your parameters. And I guess, that's really what you need for that kind of environment. Did you do any aerial photography during this trek? Because I know you do a lot of aerial stuff. Did you tie any of that into this particular project?
I did. I did a few aerial flights with a friend of mine, a guy named John Dillon. And so he's a very experienced pilot who knows the legal flight paths over the national park. And so we did some of that. And then I also did a lot of I shadowed a lot of the native tribes outside of the park because there's a lot of development issues and people trying to build giant trams and so forth at the time we were doing this. So we were trying to highlight that. And then most of it was just walking through trying to, figure it out. It's the length of the national park is 277 miles long if you're counting river miles, Colorado River at the basement. But when you're walking in and out of all these little side drainages, we ended up walking like 750 miles. It's a mile deep. In New York terms, you could stack 5 Empire State Buildings inside Grand Canyon on top of each other. And I don't even think they would break the rim. So it's a big place.
And when you started it, did you have a kind of a clear sense of what your goals, I guess, quote unquote, are? Were they primarily photographic goals or was something else going on?
The goal was to do a magazine. I was on assignment for National Geographic, so it was going to be a magazine story. It ended up being a 28-page feature. I walked with the writer, Kevin Fedarko. And then I also wanted to do a feature-length film, which I did because I had, the Sony cameras, you can shoot video as well. So I did a feature-length film, it streams on Disney Plus now. It's also playing as part of the Vancouver Mountain Film Festival this weekend online. Just two days, the PG version, we'll call it.
Wow. So that's, I mean, I'm trying to get my head around this idea of, I mean, not only not battling, but, dealing with your own survival and your own mental and physical health, but then also day in, day out, having to think of shot lists and getting the images you want. And if you're doing both photographs and video, how'd you manage? I mean, did you do something every day? Did you shoot every day?
I shot every day. And I did a few things that ended up being in the film, which were not intended originally. And that's part of filmmaking. In documentary work, you kind of roll with things. But I was so tired and so beat up that I couldn't take notes anymore at the end. So I just would turn the camera on myself and give updates where we are, what's going on, day 58, going to walk 17 miles today, feel like crap, feel great, whatever. And then that ended up becoming an integral part of the film. So the daily check-ins were part of it, but I was always struggling with battery life, especially when it got cold. So I was always kind of lingering on, 4% battery life. And I was always having to go back and delete, a number of images because I'd run out of card space and there's no way to back things up. So I would just flip a card over and go to the next new one. And, a whole year's worth of work on a magazine wallet of cards was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Imagine. No doubt.
Yeah.
Without getting way out into the weeds on how you trained, did you train for this specifically, or you just naturally like a hiker and you just figured I could deal with this?
I was a Division I athlete in college, so I've had a history of sports. I was a ice hockey player and a ski racer, so we did a lot of mountaineering stuff. But I did train because I knew this would be pretty heavy. I did a lot of hikes carrying a 50-pound pack where I live in Colorado. Now, the big difference and mistake I made is that Colorado isn't the desert. And so when I started this, I carried too much weight. I brought in two cameras, three lenses, extra bunch of batteries. I just figured, it's just going to be a slog and I'll just tough it through. And since there's no trail, you're basically walking over, your dining room table, all the chairs, your stove, your kitchen counter. There's no smooth way through it. So you're constantly climbing. So that's why it nearly killed me at the beginning. And I wasn't calibrated to the heat. It was 108 degrees in the first week in September, which was unusual, but not uncommon. So the Grand Canyon's pretty good at teaching humility, and it smacked me right across the face with it.
This is going to be a great talk then. I look forward to that.
And then I went in probably the fittest of my life in mid-40s at 205 pounds, and I came out at 168 pounds.
Wow. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Maybe we're going to jump around a little bit because we don't want to wear out all the good information for OPTIC. But
yeah.
I was really curious about the images that you call lifelines and in general, the work that you've done on river systems. Now, is there a reason why you're drawn to river systems? And I guess the Grand Canyon would fit into that, but as opposed to other ecosystems.
Well, I started out doing adventure work, basically, going on
did Everest, right?
Yeah, Mount Everest and Antarctica, and I became intrigued with rivers because I was sent on just a standard adventure story to follow a friend of mine, a guy named John Waterman, who paddled the length of the Colorado River. And I live in Colorado, so I know the river and to a degree, and it seemed like a cool story. But when I got to the end of the river, or near the end, what I thought was the end, I wasn't entirely sure where the river dumped into the sea. And to my shock and surprise, it doesn't. So we completely sucked the river dry, which to some, they may say, so what? Big deal. We use it for drinking water, et cetera. But to me, the river estuaries where they interact with the ocean is very critical for wildlife and actually helping clean water and biodiversity. And so they're very important systems for not just beauty, but for us, for the health of the planet. And I was pretty amazed to learn that the Colorado River just wasn't on anyone's radar, and that we dried it up basically, a few decades ago. Not a drop of it has reached the ocean naturally since 1998. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, these stories of fresh water are not getting told. And I think it's maybe I should do more work on rivers and talk about how they're they really are lifelines. They're flowing through our worlds and keeping us alive.
I just want to get back to Sony a little bit. Also, a touch on that. How did you evolve to Sony, and what grabbed you about it, if I may ask?
Yeah, please. Well, I'd shot every camera under the under the moon basically, and I had some big heavy Nikons when I started the Grand Canyon project, and then I met somebody said, "Yeah, have you tried out these new Sonys, these mirrorless, because they're so light?" And immediately I was like, "Oh, that sounds nice." So I tried one, and then I was amazed with yes, how lightweight they were, but also just how amazing they were with low light. So I never would have thought about shooting over an ISO of 1,000 or 1,600 before.
Those are just starting points now.
Yeah, now that's just the entry zone. And so since I knew that I was going to get down there and do a lot of night, starlight work, I thought I'd give it a go. And then, of course, I was like, well, this camera is so lightweight and it's so small. There's no way it can handle the elements of the Grand Canyon. The place is full of fine dust that just eats electronics. I mean, I've lost so many cameras working down there in the past. And to my amazement, my A7R2 still works. And I walked 750 miles through that place, 71 days, nonstop, sleeping out with no tent, just in the rocks. And the thing still cranks along.
Huh. They are built tough. They are. No two ways about it.
Just a quick question about charging your batteries out there. Did everything kind of work as you had hoped? I mean, did batteries charge relatively quickly with the solar pack you were using?
So I would charge I carried a battery cell that I would charge this that up at the solar panel, and then at night I'd charge my batteries off that.
I see.
And they charge pretty well. It works. Getting the battery cell charged up was always a challenge, and the solar systems are good. They're not great, and you could never really gain on power. You're always on a slow dwindle. So I'd eventually, after about 2 weeks time, or I think the longest stretch I did was 3 weeks, I'd have to leave and go do a full top up.
How many batteries were you able to charge at one time?
Just one.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, that also throws a kink into it for sure. Okay.
Yeah, and you if you want to go shoot a night image and you only have one camera, you can't be charging and shooting. So
I imagine you don't chimp too much when you're working in those situations.
The only time I chimped was when I needed to make space on my card.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Isn't that a frustrating and weird feeling when you bump to the end of a memory card?
That's brutal.
Brutal. Yeah.
But the beauty, which most photographers they probably don't think about this, but when you're limited, I think it makes you look harder and look better.
Yeah.
When you can't just go spray, and pray, and you've got limited battery, you've got limited space, you really start thinking and composing in a different way, and I learned to appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely makes you more selective. No two ways about it. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good discipline.
Yeah,
good discipline.
Extreme discipline.
So back to the Lifeline series, and I'm looking at it here on your site. Is this a project, or was this an assignment, or is this something that you figured, I want to kind of take this kind of perspective on rivers and make them into kind of a thing of beauty in a sense, not that they are in their own way, but how did you come about with this project?
When I did the Colorado River project, it was just a magazine story. And when I got to the end, I was like, wow, this is a much bigger story. Why is it that the river that supports 40 million Americans, nobody knows it's this challenged and this beautiful and this threatened on water? So I stayed with it. I did 3 short films. I did a book, and many of the images and lifelines are from that project, but then it sent me on to do other projects around the world looking at rivers. And I did a source to sea on the Ganges. I looked at watersheds and as far as Fiji to Iceland. And so I just kept coming back to the idea, and I've just become enamored with this ribbon of life that you see kind of trickling through our world. And patterns, and it makes either with or without water. And I just find real beauty in it. So it's also, for me, that's just sort of where I would think is kind of my more fine art kind of realm.
Right.
It's what I like the most right now.
And you've been to over 75 countries, and you've seen a lot of things. And sometimes I know I've been around, and there's some places I've been to that was fantastic. I don't need to go back there. What's one place that you do want to go back to that just really took your breath, which said, no, there's so much more here. I want to come back.
That's a good question. I mean, the Grand Canyon is you need 5 lifetimes to explore the place. I could definitely go back there, and I hope to. I plan to. But beyond that, since I've spent a lot of time there recently, I would like to get back to areas of Alaska, in the areas of the Himalaya. I'm drawn to mountains and these, especially mountains that are right up to the sea. I just find them really compelling.
Gotcha.
I like South America too, Patagonia, which falls into that category. I also just did a story. I was actually doing I was a speaker on one of the Lindblad National Geographic ships right when COVID hit. And at first we're like, great, we're perfect. Everyone on the boat's healthy. We're where we should be, away from everything. But then all of South America closed, all the ports. So we had to race back to get, if we were ever going to get home, or it'd be on the ship forever. So we were in this place called South Georgia Island, which is an island that's kind of like the Galapagos meets Antarctica. And it's off the peninsula of Antarctica. And we only had 24 hours there. And it's 200,000 king penguins all cawing. And it's a really stunning place. And I'd love to go back there, since our time was cut short. Really hard to get to, though, so who knows?
Do you have a preference of fixed wing versus a helicopter? Because I used to do a lot of boating photography, and often used helicopters to get aerial shots for a lot of the stuff that I did. And I personally had one pilot I would use whenever I was in the Northeast, and I loved him because he crashed 18 times during 3 tours of Vietnam. And I figured, if this guy's going to walk away 18 times, he's my boy. But he was amazing. He could make that aircraft do anything. I was astonished, and the communications were great. But helicopters are nice because you can stay still and you can pace with your subject. You could do a lot of things. I call them the best tripods in the world. But you're doing fixed wing. Do you have a preference for one or the other? And what are some of the challenges you have from that?
Well, helicopter is, it's the best tripod out there. They're, roughly 6 times as expensive as a fixed wing. So there's that. If somebody else isn't paying for it.
I didn't realize it was that. Okay. All right. Well, that's a factor. Okay.
And then they have a shorter range.
Yes.
And they're slower. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing in these very remote kind of Western regions where, I'm out in the middle of, an hour flight by fixed wing, 3 times the speed of a helicopter.
Sure.
Then it's just a more economical and practical situation. But for filming and getting into tough spots, heli's, priority if you're not paying for it and you got the range.
Yeah. When you're shooting from a fixed wing, especially when you're up, say, way up north in the northern regions, are you shooting through open doors or open windows, or are you going through plexi? Because they can get real cold real fast up there.
I'm going open window whenever possible, just to avoid that kind of weird refractive light from the plexi. Yeah. But there's plenty of times I've shot through plexi because your fingertips are going to fall off and it's just too cold.
Yeah. It doesn't take long. No. Okay.
No.
No.
And can I ask a bit about your assignments? Do you tend to self-assign, or at least pitch your own ideas? And if not, are most of the work that we see from you, has that been assigned, either through the National Geographic or whatever publication it may happen to be?
90% of my work has been assigned through publications, magazines. So I was lucky to catch on the tail end of a lot of the print magazine world, which is, as we all know, is dwindling.
Right.
So I pitch ideas. Sometimes they'd give me the ideas, but through 2000 to 2010, a lot of those ideas came from magazines to me. But then I pitched a lot of ideas with the writers I'd worked with. Mm-hmm. I still do that, and it's becoming harder and harder. Now today, I've been doing books, and then I'll try to do one big project, and then sell portions of that book project off to magazines too. So I'm doing a book project. I just did a Rizzoli book on the Grand Canyon. I'm going to do another project with them around the concept of natural sound and silence.
Oh, wow.
So sort of a way to go look at wild places.
But
I'll try to spin that off into magazine pieces as well. So
you own all of this work. So you have the rights to be able to turn around afterwards. If you do the project, to turn around and spin it around any way you want, and it's yours, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's the way to do it.
And is this kind of a product of wanting to take a deeper dive into certain subjects or certain areas, or is it a combination of that and the changes that we've seen in the publishing industry?
I'd say both. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough world right now to do assignment to assignment. So I think, and for listeners that might be wanting to get into photography, filmmaking, I think it's best to find a big story you're passionate about, because it ends up being a better product, and you can spin it off in different ways, and you get into deeper layers of it. Because in my opinion, just about anyone can make one beautiful single image these days with technology. Making a series of images around a story or a concept is harder, and as a result, those sometimes are more interesting to editors.
Okay, Pete, great talking with you. Now, you're going to be speaking at OPTIC on, I believe it's Sunday night, June 7th. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
okay.
Take people on a journey to the Grand Canyon.
That it's. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. We want to see more of the pictures too. And again, if folks are interested, obviously you are. The entire OPTIC schedule is on the B&H website, and we'll be promoting it heavily. Again, it's all online this year. You don't even have to buy a plane ticket. Anyway, Pete, if people want to see more of your work, the Grand Canyon or any of the projects, where should they be going to?
Well, they can see it on my website, PeteMcBride.com. On social, I'm on Instagram, at Pedro McBride. Pete was taken.
I love it.
And they can see my feature-length documentary Into the Grand Canyon on Disney Plus under National Geographic. And if there's any book people out there, you can see my latest Rizzoli book, Between River and Rim. So that's some recent stuff.
Okay, thank you so much, Pete McBride and Lisa Langell. Now, we want to remind our listeners to have a look at the show notes and follow the link to the B&H Photography Podcast Leica Photo Challenge. To thank our loyal listeners, maybe reach out to some new subscribers and inspire some safe creativity during these challenging times. We are excited to bring you this incredible photo contest in which one lucky listener is going to receive their very own Leica Q2 digital camera. If you're like us, which no doubt many of you are, you've already been taking pictures during the shutdown. And if you haven't been shooting, it's definitely not too late to start. I say this because for this contest, we're looking for pictures taken specifically during this time, pictures that reflect the challenges or perhaps a few slices of joy during this current pandemic-related shutdown. Whether you've spent this difficult time in the company of your loved ones, or you've been separated from them, as many of us have used our cameras to find solace and maybe a bit of understanding of the world we now live in. Judging will be based on subject matter, overall composition, creativity, and post-processing. You can include a caption to go along with your picture, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Now, we are not encouraging, nor will we consider images taken in public places. Entry photos must be taken inside or near your home, indoors, backyards, front yards, all okay. Don't do anything silly. Don't do anything dangerous. Here's how the contest is going to work. Step 1. If you haven't already, rate and subscribe to the B&H Photography Podcast on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. And if you're already subscribed, congrats, you're halfway there. Okay, step 2. Now that you are subscribed, head on over to Twitter and follow at Leica Camera USA and post one photograph with the hashtag BH Photo Podcast Leica. That's it. The entry period is May 28th, 2020 through June 21st, 2020. And again, the grand prize is a Leica Q2 digital camera. I've shot with the Q2 Fixed crazy sharp Summilux 28mm spheric lens. It opens up to a fast f1.7 and it focuses down to a few inches from the front element. A 47 megapixel full frame CMOS sensor, and it is an amazing, amazing camera. The judges will be Leica photographers Craig Semetko, Ashley Stahl, and yours truly. Check the show notes for a link to everybody's bio and samples of their wonderful work. Good luck, Godspeed. My name is Alan Weitz, and as always, on behalf of John and Jason, thank you so much for tuning in today.